Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I am here with the penultimate unboxing of the SCT Sampler Kit. These are being discontinued at the end of this year, and so I will open my November kit, show you a look at all the goodies, do a project, and then at the very end I'll give you an update on news from SCT about what comes next for them, and I'll give you a hint into what's coming next for me. So let's dive in. I've been a subscriber of these kits for a couple of years now, and I really appreciate their compact format so that shipping stays affordable. Shipping 12 by 12 papers is always expensive, so a large scrapbooking kit wasn't really what I wanted. And those larger kits always had more product than I could use in a month, but I did like getting a monthly goodie in the mail. So when I discovered these kits, that was right up my alley. And they have a range of modern supplies that are kind of free form so that you could do what you want with it, from card making to scrapbooking. And so those were the things that I have appreciated about SCT. And those are the things on my mind when I'm looking for what comes next. And we'll talk about that more later. But as you can see, I have opened my November kit, and there's a list of the supplies and their manufacturers on the back of this kit, including SCT always includes an exclusive die set in their kit. And I forgot that their November kit is always holiday themed. So the merry and bright theme here, including that little star over as the dot over the eye, is really sweet. We always have a reusable item, which this time around is a stamp set from Hero Arts. And I love the border feel to this. So you can just do repeat stamping with this to go across an entire scrapbooking layout. And I encourage people to use things that are intended for stamping, or for card making rather, as part of their scrapbooking life, because there's a lot of options out there that can bring you some goodness. And that's another thing I appreciated about this kit, was that it didn't confine you to a lane of paper crafting. All right, as you can see, I'm showing a few bits of goodies here that were not listed on the card. I have since gotten an email of the updated list of supplies, and the reason these items were not listed is because they weren't sure that they were going to ship in time in order to be included in the kit, but they did. And all of these first few items are from Spellbinders, including this metallic paper, which really does feel a lot like a sheet of very thin metal. So I was very impressed with that. There's also some silver enamel dots and some gold glitter leaves. And so you will see me put those things to use on my project when we get to that part. And then this set of supplies is from Cartabella. We have the partial package of ephemera pieces, including there's a piece here that pops apart. So you have two pieces in one. And then we will get to the pattern papers. The first little sheet there is a cut apart of cards. So this is cut down from a larger 12 by 12. And that, I think, is one of the things that people were not necessarily happy about with these kits, is that these papers are cut down from larger 12 by 12. And that works for card makers, but I think a lot of scrapbookers had a hard time using these. And now that hasn't been my problem. And I think 6 by 6, especially if you're looking at paper pads, they can be a really affordable way to scrapbook. And so I have lots of tips and tricks on my series of these kits showing you ways to use 6 by 6 pattern papers in your 12 by 12 scrapbooking. So I will leave a link to that playlist if you are looking for more of those ideas. And actually, I have a compilation video planned for early 2024 of these 6 by 6 to 12 by 12 scrapbooking tips and tricks. So that completes the Cartabella set of supplies, and it's definitely very traditionally Christmassy colored with the reds and greens there. So we are going to move on to the Pink Fresh. Yes, this is Pink Fresh Studio set of supplies, and they often have a more modern color palette to their collections, although I am seeing some reds and greens here, along with the pinks and aquas that have been more common in the last few years. We have a partial package of puffy stickers, and then we'll get to the pattern papers. Again, a very graphic design and not necessarily the traditional, more vintagey feel, I guess. And that's the way a lot of paper products I've seen moving in the last couple of years during Christmas time, is back to that vintagey look. So I like the fresh look of these Pink Fresh Studio supplies. And this next paper is actually one of my favorites, those little houses. I just love those. And the color, anything that, comes in kind of a rainbow color has got my attention for sure. And we'll take a look at the last couple of sheets of paper. As I put these down on the table, I tend to put them down facing up in the way that I think I would use that paper most likely on a project, but I always change my mind when I get to things. And here's a good scallop. I am kind of running low on scallops in my collection, so I might need to purchase some more of that paper just to have a backlog of scallops for my other projects that I do throughout the month, including my kit building project at the beginning of each month. Okay, so that wraps up the products that are included in this November kit, and we will go ahead and move on to my project. I did pull out some Christmas photos from last year that I haven't scrapbooked yet, and these photos are from us trying to take a family photo in front of our fresh Christmas tree, and everybody was goofing off, and we were having a hard time getting an actual serious photo where everybody was smiling and looking at the camera. So I'm kind of telling that story of us goofing off. Now, I know for sure I want to use the die cut on that gold metallic paper for my title. And finding which paper I want to be the shadow piece behind that was a little tricky because I wanted something that was going to go with the rest of my plan, which is to piece together 4 quadrants of red paper. But I only had 3 pieces of red paper, so I had to shift my thinking of where I was going with this layout. I did have that pink piece, which I could have used, but because there's so much red in there, I was wanting something to fit a little bit better with the depth of the red. So I have my 3 red pieces, and I'm looking for something else that can split this design. So I'm going to use the 6x6 pieces down the middle, and I will cut the others into 3-inch, 3x6-inch pieces, and then piece everything back together into a 12-inch sheet. And as I'm looking through things, I am going to go with a traditional color palette here with the reds and greens. And so I've got all the reds at the top, and then down at the bottom, I've got a red and green split. And then I have a belly band with red and green plaid to pull it all together. I got my title die cut out, and I am going to go ahead and back it on pink. And I'm going to pull in more pink with that house pattern paper as a mat behind my photo. It's not going to be a traditional mat where it goes all the way around the photo, but it will be a matting layer behind my photo. So that is all what I've got going on here, and you can see how I'm trimming down that piece of paper to act as a non-traditional mat. I did stack my title on some red, so it has a peak of red behind it as I lay it on the shadow of pink. And because there is a star over that I in my title, I brought out a star punch that I'm going to add in more embellishing with that gold pattern paper so that it kind of ties in the rest of the layout. And then I'm trying to decide what I want to do with that non-traditional mat up there. And eventually I pull in a piece of paper that I have a torn edge, and I add that to the bottom of my layout to kind of pull. That upper mat has a very lightness to it, and so I want to pull that lightness down into the bottom of the layout as well. And what I'm going to do with that upper photo is just trim off the bottom because there's not a lot of stuff going on the bottom of that photo, and then it will be flush with that mat, and I will like that look and feel a little bit better. As I was chit-chatting about that, I have started working on some embellishing for this layout. I'm going to use that little frame piece from Cartabella, and I'm going to fill it in with pattern paper from Pink Fresh so that, again, we have more of that light and bright feeling happening on top of the heavy red and green. And here's where I go to work on my gold stars, and then I'm going to start working on the other embellishment clusters for this layout. So I'm going with my very classic visual triangle of embellishment clusters. So I will have a cluster around my title, a cluster down in the bottom, and then a cluster up at the top left of that upper photo. And in a little bit, you'll see me move that around a bit as I realize what is happening with my visual triangle. So here I'm starting to kind of shift things, and I'm looking at my triangle, And I'm realizing that my photos are sitting outside of the triangle. So if you go from that top left embellishment cluster to the bottom right, I've got a lot of photos sitting off to the left of that visual triangle. And what a visual triangle is supposed to do is to kind of contain all of the important elements. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do at this point, but I start bulking up my embellishment clusters, and that's where I decided to turn my photo. And this is where I realized that the visual triangle is outside. So I'm going to move that embellishment cluster over. So then as I get all those bits and pieces moved over, you can see me kind of mapping out where those lines of the triangle land, and that will show you that everything fits more nicely inside of that visual triangle. In the meantime, I did decide to expand my bright paper down there at the bottom just a little bit more so that the heaviness of that red and green is lightened up just a little bit. Okay, here is where my visual triangle looks a lot better. All right, the next step is to bring in those silver enamel dots. Now, I don't think I have ever mixed gold and silver on a page before. Maybe once or twice. But this definitely felt like a outside of my comfort zone for sure. And so I was looking at how to do this. And one way, of course, because those enamel dots were in there in silver along with the other gold embellishments, that encouraged me to just go for it. But also I like to dangle my little ornaments. And since I have an ornament embellishment, I am going to dangle it off of silver twine because that's what I have in my stash. I was not a gold person for many, many years. And so I always tended towards the silver metallics. But that kind of switched at some point. So this old silver twine is coming back into play with a mixture of silver and gold. And I put those little silver enamel dots onto my gold stars. So that really ties the two together. And as I've been chatting about that, I am doing a little bit of stamping. I thought I would do a lot more stamping as borders around that belly band. But I had started to cover it up too much with the embellishment. So I just did a little bit of a frame around my lower photo, which you can see here a little bit better. And then I added in my journaling, and there's a little close-up of the mixed metallics, although it's not picking up on camera super well. But that completes the layout for this time around. Hello, I thought I'd pop in live to give this little bit of an update to the SCT Sampler program. As you probably know, it's being discontinued at the end of this year, and that is December 2023. They have sent out an email, which I got just today, saying that they are replacing the SCT Sampler Kit with a full format 12x12 scrapbooking kit that will be released 4 times a year. So that's every 3 months. And it will be, I think they said the same price. I haven't confirmed that, but the same price as an entire year of the SCT Sampler Kit. So that is what is on the horizon for them. And I believe this change was made because a lot of people requested full format scrapbooking papers, and probably because some of the other items like stamps and stuff don't cross over between card making and scrapbooking as much as I think they should. But my opinion does not drive business. So they are making a business decision in this realm. And that is not going to work for me, partially because the shipping alone on those kits is $12.50. The kit itself for the US was $40.45 Canadian. But $12.50 in shipping is just a bit steep, and getting a whole box of random products is not necessarily what I'm looking for. I know in the past when I've subscribed to full scrapbooking kits, I've loved them for sure. And new things have definitely pushed me to try different things that I might not otherwise have. But I have the feeling that with this being a quarterly kit, it's going to run pretty seasonally, and especially in the winter time when a lot of those things are going to be Christmas related. I don't do a lot of heavily themed scrapbooking, and that would be just more difficult for me to use. Yes, I have lots of tips and tricks, and I definitely look at the B-sides, but having to make do with what comes is not what I'm looking for in a kit. And I really am curious about what these kits will look like, so I will probably follow some other YouTubers out there who are getting these kits and using them to see what they actually look like in the end. I feel really bad about not subscribing to them because I do love SCT and I want to support them, and they do a good job with what they do. It's just that I'm worried it's not going to fit for me. So, what is going to fit for me? I have been on a mad, a little obsessive research phase into various kit clubs out there. And I did this before I even found SCT. And there's a couple more options that I hadn't really known about before. But I'm looking for something that is more bite-sized than a big full scrapbooking kit, which is what I loved about SCT. It's a little more flexible. I do want it to come monthly, and that's the other thing about the new SCT scrapbooking kits, is that they'll be every 3 months, and I need a little bit more goodness coming on a regular basis than that. Call it attention deficit or boredom or whatever you want to call it, but I really look forward to having a little bit of something in the mail. I did like the surprise aspect of the SCT Sampler kits because I never knew what was coming. I mean, they had a format that they followed, so I definitely could expect certain things. So other kits aren't going to be as much a surprise. So that is a con to moving on to something else. What else am I looking for in this kit? So it needs to be bite-sized. The shipping needs to be affordable, which pretty much eliminates 12 by 12 papers. I will link you up to several of the websites that I have been researching that were things that I considered, and you can look those over and try and guess what I'm going to end up going with, knowing what I've shared here so far. So that is the news from SCT and from me, and I will be starting. I have already decided for sure which company I'm going to go with at this point, unless I find something different or make a really different budget decision. I do have what I'm going to use already picked out, and I will start that in January. So I hope you will enjoy my final SCT sampler kit next month, and that you will join me in January for what comes next. I will give you a reveal in December so that you know what to expect in January. But this is just a little teaser for you until then. So thanks so much again for watching. And I've got to get this camera position figured out. And I hope you will join me. And until then, I hope you have many artful days.